Brandon Wainwright, author of Tysons' Gift, How an 8-Pound Canine Became a Man's Greatest Spiritual Guide, and owner of Tysons' Gift Healing Arts, offers Reiki as well as color and sound modalities to anyone seeking physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual healing. While color and sound healing, a technique that brings balance and health to one's chakras and body, must be provided in person. Reiki, a Japanese form of energy healing, can be given in person or equally effectively from a distance. For more information or to make an appointment for a session, please visit TysonsGiftHealing.com. That's TysonsGiftHealing.com. The Tysons' Gift podcast was created to promote the normalization of metaphysical and spiritual topics, particularly the reality that we are all eternal souls having an earthly experience. Obviously, this will cover a wide berth of topics such as animal communication, mediumship, the paranormal, past life regression, energy healing, you name it. Brandon hopes to entertain his audience with fascinating discussions with experts, as well as everyday folks who have metaphysical experiences and knowledge to share. The intention is to help make esoteric topics fun, relatable, and credible for audiences of all backgrounds. And here is your host of the Tysons' Gift podcast, Brandon Wainwright.
Hi, and welcome to the Tysons' Gift podcast on WLTK-DB Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Wainwright, here with Pepper Wainwright, who always looks more nervous than I am before the show. I don't know why she is exactly, but she's very important. She's integral in spirit to this show. And if you've read Tysons' Gift, the book, you know why. I'm not going to tell you why. You have to read it to find out, but it's good. Trust me, it's worth reading for. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put her down and stop torturing her now. I want to go ahead and let you know a little bit about what this show is going to be about today. I've got Aumara Bonnet on. She is a world-renowned psychic and spiritual teacher who has had a huge influence on me in my life, made a big difference to me, and actually a number of my friends that I've referred her to, or referred to her. Much like Lisa Silverman, the medium I had on a couple of weeks ago, she's made a big difference in a lot of people's lives. So I think you're going to get a lot out of tonight's show. But before we get going, I actually do have a doggy do story. So if I have anything gross to share, I'd like to share that just to kind of kick it off. Yesterday, as I was walking out into the backyard, so we've got two dogs. We've got Pepper and we've got Ellie. Ellie is a mini golden doodle. Pepper's a Chihuahua mix. Actually, they're both in the book. Ellie actually has a more prominent position in the book than Pepper does. But Pepper, when you read it, you'll understand why it's important still. But for some reason, Ellie has this tendency. When she relieves herself, she can't just do it in one spot. She has to have a trail going behind her. And you never know exactly where these little bombs are going to fall. And our backyard is 2/3 of an acre, or our yard is, the whole thing. But the backyard's a pretty significant size, pretty substantial. So you would think there would be plenty of room for her to go caca in areas where it's not going to have any impact on us. And again, yes, we're very good about cleaning things up too. But for some reason, yesterday, she decided to leave her tracks right on the pavement, right outside the back door, and I walked out into it barefoot. And it was just one little nugget, but it was enough to get me. So with that gross story, I'm sure many of you women out there are cringing right now, and that's okay, because that's just my style. I am going to introduce Aumara. Come on in here, Aumara.
Hi. Hey.
Welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. How could I not? You played an integral role in my spiritual growth and my path, and I hope this isn't the last time you're on. I'll say that now. We haven't even gotten started yet.
Aw,
I
that's sweet. Thank
I,
you.
I should also point out that Aumara has her own show on WLTK-DB, The Voice of Oneness, and it's on at you said 9 o'clock
N-
Pacific.
9 o'clock Arizona time, which is Mountain Standard Time. For Pacific, it's 8. For Central, it's 10. And for Eastern, it's 11 p.m.
Now, I can tell you that her podcasts are incredible. It's having had readings from her a number of times. They're almost as good as the readings, except they're not quite as personal and specific to you, but they're pretty awesome. You'll gain a lot from it, trust me. So you should definitely tune in. I'm going to read a little your intro just to kind of give people an idea of your background, and we'll go from there. So Aumara is a renowned psychic, spiritual teacher, coach, energy healer, mystic, and gifted visionary who taps into the higher realms to join with the vast collective of source energy known as the voice of divine oneness. Aumara connects with spirit to bring forth the guidance, support, and understanding so needed at this time of human evolution. She is the founder and owner of the Voice of Oneness Healing and Learning Center. Aumara is a licensed educator who holds both bachelor's and master's degrees from Dowling College in Oakdale, New York. Aumara is also a certified Reiki master and teacher, certified clinical hypnotherapist and EFT practitioner, training levels 1 and 2, and advanced matrix healing. And for more information on Aumara, I'm sure I'm going to give her a chance to plug this later in the show, but a real easy one to remember. I know because I've remembered it off the top of my head in the past, and if I can, you can. It's askaumara.com. So you should definitely go there and see what her offerings are. She's an amazing lady and an incredible person. I'm gushing a little bit here, but Aumara is one of my favorite people on the planet. Not only is she incredibly talented, but she has a heart of gold. And when you mix the two of those together, and wisdom to go with it, when you mix all those together, you have a very special human being who is making a big difference in a lot of people's lives. So, and I will say that if you have any inclination about getting any spiritual guidance from somebody, she should be top of your list. So, with that, I am going to say hello again. And
Hello.
so you're one of the, I guess it depends on your perspective on things, but you are one of the lucky ones. You were born with this gift. You have had it your whole life, and you're one of those that didn't know what it was like not to have this gift, correct? As a child?
Correct. Well, as a child, you don't look at it from that perspective. There's different stages that we go through, as with anything, that we're doing in life. So as a child, what you want most is you just want to have fun. You want to enjoy. You want to share. You want to play. And as a child who's very sensitive and who's able to see things that others are not, or feel things that others are not, it doesn't occur to the child that everyone's not on the same page. So what happens usually is when enters the awareness, there's a bit of a thump. It's a bit of a hard fall. And what I mean by that is, for example, one example of that, I remember being about age 7 or so, and a new family moved in across the street, and I was so excited to watch the moving van come and the people, and I saw there was a little girl about my age. So naturally, the next day I went and knocked on the door and asked her if she wanted to play, and she was allowed to come and play with me. And we went back to my house, and we were in my room, and we were playing. And then I said, okay, well, now it's time to lay our bodies down. And, I did not realize that that was an odd request, and it's, oh, you want to take a nap? Oh, no, we lay our bodies down and we leave our bodies, and then we'll come back and we'll be, rejuvenated. And she went home. We did that, and then we played as kids will, it wasn't a big deal. She went home. The next day I went to call for her. I knocked on the door and they opened the door as far as the chain, the chain lock on a door, as far as
Yeah.
that they had the chain on. And they
Ma-
said, she cannot play with you. You're crazy. You need to go home. And that was the first time that I can recall when I reflect back that I got the message that there was something wrong with me. There was something, and that's how I interpreted it, as there was something wrong with me. And then moving on from there was a time I was playing with another friend, and she had a stream behind her house, and I was playing with the fairies, and she asked what I was doing, and I said, "Don't you see the fairies? We're playing with the fairies." She told her mom, and I wasn't invited back to that house either. So I learned through my childhood to really not share most things, just to play the games that everybody wanted to play. And so that led to doing what a lot of us do that are very sensitive or are open to different abilities beyond the five senses. We kind of keep that to ourselves and try very much to fit in. We want to fit in. So where somebody, as you're reflecting on it now, you're saying, oh, well, that was such a gift to a child or somebody's growing up, especially the teenage years. You're like, oh no,
Oh, I can't even imagine.
All you want to do is fit in. You just want to
Yeah.
fit in.
I mean,
And
that must have been.
it was tough.
Every teenager goes through that awful
Yeah,
period of
it was
angst.
it was tough because one of the things that comes natural to me is reading energy. So I can read energy. I
Oh, I
know,
know.
yeah, I know what's going on. I know what the thoughts are. I know what the truth is. So many people will say something and they might even believe in what they're saying, but it's not their truth. And
I've had that happen with you
yeah, yeah.
more than once, actually.
Yeah, more than once. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it comes up. So it's always been there, always been that way. I remember once I was at my office. I had a healing center in California. It was Valentine's Day, and I had this rock. And yeah, so I can communicate with rocks and animals and trees and plants. Everything holds consciousness, and everything holds consciousness to a certain awareness. And when we can tune in and tap into, I'll call the one mind, the universal mind, we can receive any information that we're asking. And I have this rock who I really love, this particular stone. And I was going home at the end of the day, and I just, goofing around. I said, "Do you want to come home or do you want to stay here and hang out in the office?" And the response was, "I want to go home and be with the salt lamp." And I went, "The salt lamp?" And then there wasn't any comment after that. And then I went home and there was a box on the table for my husband. It was a Valentine's Day gift, and it was a Himalayan salt lamp. So I look at it and I'm like, "Oh," and my husband goes, "You
Wow.
know what it is, don't you?" And I go, "Well, the rock told me." I said, he said, "It's no fun giving you presents because you always know." So it's things like that. You wish you didn't know, so you could have that element of surprise. And it's
Yeah.
not that every single time. I don't want to make that statement that it's 100% of the time. I know, but many times like yesterday I was sitting with my son in a car dealership, and it was very crowded and there were a lot of cars going in, and we had a number of things that were on the schedule that we had to get done that day, and I'm like, "Oh gosh." So I'm sitting there, and then I let it go, and I'm playing with my grandson, and all of a sudden I get the message in my head, "You're next. You'll be done next." And then sure enough, the guy walks in the door, calls my son's name, and he was done. I just said, "Oh, thank you." So it's just when we're relaxed and not trying to make anything happen is when it just naturally happens. So
Yeah.
the information just naturally comes. Naturally comes.
That is so incredible, though. I can vouch for you just knowing things, though. I remember. So I want to share real quick.
Hard work in life, I'll tell you.
Oh, I can't. That's the thing. Like those of us that are learning about our spiritual gifts and kind of cracking them open, and there's a whole challenge that goes with that because you're having to break a lot of conditioning and thought process and spiritual process that you've reinforced throughout your life. But and there's like this, I wouldn't say envy, but there's this longing to be able to tap in and connect the way you can. But you don't think about the downsides to it.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
significant. And that's
Yeah.
Lisa Silverman, who was on the show a couple weeks ago. She's talked to me about that a number of times, about how hard it can be, because she's like,
Yeah.
they're grabbing her, spirits grabbing her to talk to contact their loved ones, and she often feels, she's very clairsentient, so she feels the pain, like
Yes.
they'll use
Yes.
sensation,
Yes.
and so
Yes.
she's like, sometimes it's a drag. It's like, she's inundated with all this stuff all the time. So,
Mhm.
but I will say that I'm looking forward to a little bit more than I have. Maybe not all the heaviness though of all that. But I want to share that when I met you, so if anybody's ever been to Sedona, which I'm sure a lot of the people that are listening have, it's a beautiful place, Red Rock Country. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours north of Phoenix in Arizona, and it's absolutely stunning. It's one of the most beautiful places you'll ever see. And actually, at Disneyland, what do they call the Cars ride? They actually, if you've ever been on that ride at Disney World or Disneyland, that all the scenery that they built into it, all that red rock, was modeled after Sedona. So if you want to see the real thing, go there. You'll check it out. But it's also a very it has a lot of spiritual energy. There's vortexes all over the place in that area, and it also has a very robust spiritual community, metaphysical community. So when you come into the town, one of the first places that you'll notice in the middle of town is this big building that's purple and I guess red. Can't remember what the trim color is, but it's a very distinctive looking building. Not just the color, but all the signs on it. For example, vortex tours, and there's little wooden aliens on the side of the building, things like that. Where if you haven't tapped into that, had that spiritual awakening, if you don't have a woo-woo side of you, you're going to look at that and make fun of it, which is exactly what I did. My mom she moved there in the 90s, and so I went there many times prior to my own awakening, and I used to say, "Ooh, the vortex," I was totally skeptical. But anyway, after I had my awakening, about a year later, I went into that place. It's called the Center for the New Age. It's the purple building. And I hit where I used to make fun of it. All of a sudden now it seemed very fascinating to me, and some place that I was very drawn to, because I was aware now, so I go in there, and I was lucky enough. I went into, they have readers, like psychics and healers, and energy workers that are there on site, that have offices, and they work right out of the building. And so you can go in there and get a reading anytime you want, and there's somebody going to be there. And so I went in to inquire about who was available, and as I was standing there, Aumara walked through the room, and I didn't know who she was. She doesn't look like somebody that's woo woo, so I didn't know. But she had a very positive energy, and it struck me. It made an impression on me. I didn't even talk to her; she just walked by me. So when I went through, they had a binder with all the different readers in the book, and of who was available that day, and Aumara's picture was there. I was like, oh, there it is. There's the person I'm supposed to talk to. And while I was in my reading, I won't give you all the details of it, but I will say that Aumara launched me into writing my book. I was having trouble getting started, and the things she said to me in that session convinced me that it was time for me to write my book. You'll have to read it to find out what she said. But also, I'll give you something specific just to kind of, so you can see what I'm talking about. My mom and I, bless her soul, had a big fight the day before. I didn't see her very often, but I saw her the day before, just for about a half hour, and it wasn't a pretty interaction. It was pretty ugly, and considered I only probably saw her once a year, it was significant. And so while I was in the reading, Aumara says to me, you're healing over something with your mother that just happened. It just occurred, and I can see that you're healing from it. And what was funny was, talking about like knowing energy and knowing, I had convinced myself that no, I didn't. I wasn't healing. I was over it. because my mom really ticked me off that day. So I was just kind of putting up that hard shell. And so Aumara helped me to see that no, I did need to pay attention to what I was experiencing. And so just to give you an idea of just of how she can see things. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to the different people that have commented on the show. Facebook user, not sure who you are, but it says hello all, and we say hello to you.
Hello.
Barbara Rosefield says hi, Pepper. Been there. Thank you, and I'm sure Pepper appreciates you. She's no longer in the room, but I'm sure she can feel your energy. Andrea Warner, who happens to be my sister, says, "Oh yes, we have a little white dog that does the same exact thing." Talking about the caca, I'm assuming. So yeah, well, I guess maybe it's a family thing. And by the way, Andrea, I will say, Andrea had a reading with Aumara and got a huge healing from that. So just so you know, Rachel Peterson says, and she's a friend of mine. She says, "So glad to be here and to see you both, Aumara and Brandon. I love my readings with Aumara." And Rachel, I met her in a class and referred her to Aumara. So there's an example of a happy customer. And Cheryl Bale says, "Hi, good to be able to see another podcast. Thank you, Cheryl, for being here." And Barbara Rosefield also says hello and blessings to all. So just wanted to acknowledge you for all that. And so go ahead and I'm sorry I've monopolized the show there for a second. But I wanted to just share that because it was a special thing for me. It had a huge impact going forward. What is that sound? You hear that?
Is it a crackling sound?
I think so.
It's probably the candle that I have burning here.
And music. You have music playing?
You can hear my music?
I can hear your music.
Yes, I do.
That's okay. I'm sure it's spiritual music.
It is.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
That's so interesting because I do a meditation online on Tuesday evenings, and I wanted so much for those that were with me on the particular evening for the meditation. I wanted the music playing in the background. I turned it on, and I just assumed everybody could hear it. I said, "Can you hear it? Can you hear it?" And everybody's going, "No." And I'm like, "Oh, darn!" And here I thought you couldn't hear it. And you could.
Was it the same microphone? Same mic? Or maybe it was a different mic. Uh-oh.
It was on Zoom, and this is on a different
yeah, StreamYard.
Everything is frequency, everything. We're a frequency, we're vibration, everything is a frequency. So it depends on what frequency you're tuning into.
Your ambient noise in your environment was meant to be shared by everybody here.
Yeah.
So as you went forward, you had those. Gosh, I can't even imagine what that must have been like as a young child to be treated like a serial killer. That was the first thing that came to mind when you talked about the pain on the door, and I mean, just how insecure that must have made you at the time. It would have done that. It would have made me insecure just about being accepted by people.
It made me very aware of that there was something going on. I didn't understand what exactly it was. I didn't know. Even being like so sensitive, so highly sensitive, so empathic by nature, so clairsentient is what I am. I can also see, so I got times where I'm clairvoyant or clairaudient at times too. But mostly it's what I feel, and from a very, born feeling very strongly. And I remember that we can move upwards from the age 7 to the teenage years. And I was 14. And at 14, you're very concerned with how you look, and you're very concerned with everybody around you. It's a big thing for a 14-year-old girl. So I was going out to dinner with my parents, and it was this restaurant that had this long rectangular shaped dining room, and it was full. Everybody, we were getting the one table that was left all the way at the end of the dining room. So I had to walk through the entire dining room. So my parents are walking ahead of me, and I'm following behind, and I'm feeling everyone. So for me, the feeling, it wasn't exactly what happened, but for me, my perception of it, everything kind of stopped and froze in that moment, and everyone turned and stared at me. and I could feel the energy of everybody in the room. So by the time I got to the table, I collapsed at the table and I was just crying and crying. And my mother's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm saying, I couldn't, she didn't feel it. So I said, "I feel everybody." I said, "I feel everybody in the room and everybody is staring at me, and I could feel their energy. I felt like it was inside of me. There was no difference between me and them, is the way I can explain it now, but I couldn't explain it then. And my mom's like, "Oh, honey, it's because you're so pretty." And I'm like, "No, she did the best she could, but she couldn't help me. My dad couldn't help me. And there was no one to help me. It's not like I had, like some people, they have their spirit guides are right there and they're telling them what's going on. I didn't have that. You're thrown in the world, boom. And, you're going to learn and it wasn't until I had birthed both my kids. And I had a number of different things. I received messages throughout the years here and there, but I didn't have, like some people have their daily guidance and they're, guided to do what they do. I was kind of left on my own until I had birthed both kids. 29. I was 29. I had one
Wow.
child at 27, one at 29. And I was 29. And then my son was a couple of months old, and all of a sudden I call it like the lid blowing off. Then I could not focus my eyes on any one particular object without seeing visions continuously. It's like somebody would think they were psychotic.
We lost you there for a second, Aumara. When you come back in, we'll have you repeat this stuff. Uh-oh. Houston, we have a problem. Why don't we go to Aumara? Aumara? Yeah, you broke up there for a second. Can you you were just saying that you turned when you were 29, you couldn't look at anything without it. And so it was almost like being schizophrenic.
Yeah, it's almost like, not, I don't know if it's, I wouldn't say schizophrenic, but I said constant visions, seeing constant visions. And it started off, it appeared like movie screens. Like you see a screens and you have, your different clips of the film. And I would see one flow into the next, and I would be sitting there and I'd be watching it. And I'd be watching this film go on about people that I didn't know in life. I didn't know who they were. I'd have groups of people and I'd be watching what they're doing. And this, then all of a sudden I'd have, Mother Mary would appear to me, and I'd have all these, different experiences with different beings. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to get help with this. So
what do you attribute that blowing open from? Or to what caused
absolutely that? What causes all things is the divine hand. It was timing. It was necessary to bring me to the point where I picked up a piece of, it was called a penny saver. It was like a local advertisement. And I picked it up and I opened it up and I saw an ad for a psychic in there. And I said, okay, I had never been to a psychic before. I didn't consider myself to be psychic. I wasn't even playing in that area. I was going to school. I was going to be a lawyer. Okay, I graduated high school at 16 years old, and I went off to school, and my dream was eventually to become a lawyer. I didn't get there, of course. I began something else, but that's where I was more in my left brain than my right brain, although I am very right-brained as well. I'm kind of like a nice mix. But so anyway, I made an appointment with the psychic, and then right underneath that ad was an ad to sell encyclopedias. So I said, "Oh, I've never done something like that." My husband worked in the city, and he would be home on the weekends, so he could take care of the kids. And I said, "Can I just go and work on the weekends and just sell encyclopedias just to have fun and make a little money?" And he said, "Sure, go ahead." So now we say divine hand. The woman who was my supervisor wound up being my first, in the physical form, spiritual teacher. So I'm still, very good friends with her to this day, was much different than I am. I'm very easygoing, I call it light and kind of airy at times, kind of very, very lofty. And she's very dramatic, very, very, very hard edges. So
Right.
she's a different type of architectural type than I am. So we were at this store and we were setting up our booth for our encyclopedias. I had an appointment that night to see the psychic. She walked outside to have a cigarette, and she's looking at me through the glass doors. Now, I'm the very sensitive being. I could feel her reading me. And I go, oh my gosh, she's reading me. Oh my gosh, and I could feel it. I could feel it going on. So she walks in and she looks at me. I mean, meanwhile, the only conversation we had is, what's your name? And a little bit about my work history. And I was hired, and that was our first meeting, our first day together within hours. She slaps her business card down on the table. She says, what are you doing tonight? And I said, I'm having a psychic reading. She goes, I know. Call me when it's over. And I'm like, oh, gosh. That to me, somebody so sensitive, I'm like,
Yeah.
What's going to happen when I go see this psychic? And it was one of those psychic readings that, I'm sorry to say, but, your listeners might have experienced it. You go to some people and they're not true psychics. They're going to tell you all sorts of things. And so she told me things like, you better go home and put your life in order because you're going to have a car accident, you're going to die, and this crazy stuff. I mean, it couldn't have been crazy. I can't make this stuff up.
See, that sickens me because, on the one hand, you know that there's charlatans out there that are just trying to make a buck, but and then you're going to give a bunch of disturbing information that's going to screw the person's life up on top of that?
Oh, yeah. Well, it didn't have that effect on me, but it can on someone.
Yeah.
So, I went to I called up the woman and I said, I had this reading. It was horrible. I need to talk to you. She goes, I know, I'm waiting for you. Come on over. And she gave me the directions to her house. And I get there and we sit down and then we, she goes through it with me and then she starts to teach me. And then she was very big on what's called the process of automatic writing. So she picked up the pen and she had a legal pad there. And that was the first time I've ever seen that. That was introduction to that automatic writing. And then she started to write, and then we got more information. And then after that, I went home and I felt better, a little bit better. And it was during that week that I started getting this name in my head. And I won't say the person's name because I don't want to put names to it. But I'm like, okay. And I'm talking, and all of a sudden this man's name comes out of my mouth. And I'm like playing with my son, and all of a sudden I'm talking to this man in my head about this play that I'm having with my son. I'm like, oh, he's doing this, and then I stop and I go, okay, who is this? Who is this? That I'm having this conversation with, and then it kept happening. And then the following week, I went back to her house for more automatic writing, and that particular being came through. He's a master, a very well-known master. He came through. And then he spoke about what was going on and things like that. So I got it.
Can you tell me when we're off the air?
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I'll ask him. No, but maybe. But anyway, she got it. I got it. So what I want the listeners to understand is that she didn't know that I was getting that name. I didn't know that she'd pick up a pen and it would come through her. So that's a kind of like a safety net. That's saying, okay, it's not your imagination. This is really coming through. You didn't feed her this information. It came, through her and through you. So it came that way purposely.
That, I can speak to that where that's one of the hardest parts about being, because I'm in my infancy still. So, I'm less and less so, but I still question some, especially information that I get. The energy, I can feel it and it has its effect. Yeah. But when it's information, images, things like that, it's so easy to dismiss them. But I had just recently, two separate, I guess you could call them colleagues, in two separate situations, don't know each other, not even in the same state, actually. And where I was working with them, and they could actually see an energy signature that I have when I'm sending energy. They could actually see it, what it looks like. And that blew my mind. It was so affirming. It gave me confidence. It gave me it was growing, but it was like, oh my gosh, this is real. Even though I knew it was real, it was like, wow, I've got people.
Somebody saw it. Yeah. I can see it. Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I didn't want to know. That's a good thing, because as that, okay, you can say, yeah, I'm doing my work. I know I'm doing good work, and you can see the results. You can see people, they're receiving healing. They're having their experiences, and then you say, well, I really wish that I felt more or I could experience more. And then you put that out there, and then the universe responds with, okay, boom, there's this other person that can see, who has the power of that
Yeah.
ability. I want to call it power, the ability to see. Now contacts you and says, this is what I saw. So these two people
Yeah.
both validate because you put that out there. So
Yeah.
that's the response to that. That's the divine orchestration of it. Always
Well,
say,
here you go.
we live in a very precise universe, and there's nothing by chance, and everything is exact to the T all the time. The I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, everything is precise. There is absolutely zero excess in our universe. No matter what
Yeah.
we may believe, there is zero excess.
And you can, the thing is, you can always see, and when you're in the thick of something,
Yeah.
like as you know, I'm in the thick of some pretty heavy stuff right now, and it's hard to see how everything is going to work, and when you have a certain amount of fear in your ego, your lower chakras are involved, and but when you look back in retrospect, you can see the precision, and you can see how much good even the toughest situations created in the big scheme of things. Barbara says that's sad. As far the charlatan lady you were working with, and then she says validation, which is yes. And Christina says, how can I get through grief? I'm so numb. Well, that's another question. Maybe we can address that later in the show. Are you? Do you want to take a quick break?
Sponsor? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break. For those of you who are just, I can just sense it. You're so tuned in right now, and you have to go to the bathroom. So do it right now so you don't miss anything. Go for it.
Heard a girl scream down here.
Are you kidding me right now?
I'm listening.
Very well. Thank you so much.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Brandon Wainwright. This is the Tysons Gift Podcast on WLTK-DB Talk Radio, and we have a very exciting guest tonight, Aumara Bonnet. Barbara says, in response to my bathroom thing, she says, LOL. So people are always telling me, don't do that on the air. And I say, no, that's who I am. I'm gonna be myself on the air. There are people that appreciate toilet humor. Okay.
I'm thinking if I were to take that short break and try to make it to the bathroom, it's at the other side of the house, I wouldn't make it there and back in time.
Yeah, it was a little quick.
And my dog would probably jump in the room, and I don't want him in the room at this time. I mean, I love him, but he also barks at everything, so I don't want him in the room. But anyway, back to what we were talking about, and I see here that Christina did ask about how do I get through grief. That's a difficult question. It's having gone through, losing loved ones myself. Most recently I lost my husband several years ago. He had cancer, and we went through 3 years of everyday cancer treatment until the very end. And I don't think that we make it through grief. When we say make it through it, we experience it. And then as we begin to grow and we begin to have different experiences, we see it from a slightly different perspective. So for instance, myself, my own belief system, my experiences, things I've had happen during this lifetime And the experience that I have with the masters when they're teaching me the non-physical, and when I'm joining with the team, put me in a place of where I have an understanding that many people may not, or a belief system that many people may not share, as when we lose a loved one and we're experiencing the grief process.
Yeah.
So I see it differently. I see it as a crossing over our conscious. We are consciousness, and that consciousness is eternal. It has no ending to it. It's not like this life ends, now we're gone. No, those that are not in this physical form with us, they're in a different vibration. So it's as if they're in the next room. We can say they're in the next room. They simply had to leave their body here, but they're in the next room, meaning they can still, they're only a thought away. So if I were to think the thought and to reach them, they would get that thought, and boom, they'd be there and they'd answer that. And that's how the mediumship occurs. It's that you're tuning in and you're tapping into the field. We're all part of the field. We're all part of one whole. We're all part of what we call the oneness. We all came forth from the same source. We can call that source the Godhead. We can call it life. We can call it love. We can call it law. We can call it nature. We can call it whatever we need to call it. But just knowing that we all came forth from that same source. And people will say, well, I may not believe that. I say, okay, well, do you believe you created yourself? And they'll say, well, no. And I said, so we can agree that somehow you were created, and there was a force that created you. And they said, okay, yeah. And I say, okay, well, let's give that force a name. For me, it's God. For you, it may be whatever. And just say, okay, that's the force. So it doesn't matter what we call it. It matters how we attune to it, where we put our attention and we focus in on it, and we begin to allow ourselves to feel that. And as we feel that source, then inside of us, especially the heart center, we feel more of a sense of peace. We feel more of a sense. We move past the numbness that we may feel initially when we lose a loved one, and we start to open up. We start to feel a little bit of a sense of, okay, there's more to this life than I understand, which means there's more to the afterlife than I understand, because it's a continuation, it's a process, it's an unfolding, it's an eternal dance. It's an eternal dance. So if you're the one here that's experiencing the loss and you're feeling numb, they say, okay, what is it that I feel would help me here and now to feel better? What is it that I would like? And for many, many people, it depends on what went on. They like to have some sort of, the thing that usually comes up is some sort of knowing, knowing that my loved one is okay. They're free of pain. They're okay. That they're continuing. That everything is, that life, it goes on. That they're not in any distress or any trouble, or they're not worried about me. Or so you say, okay. Then we put our hands on our heart and we say, okay, I can breathe in right here, right now. And I'm just going to allow myself to imagine in my mind that I'm sitting with my loved one, and we're sitting on a bench, and we're overlooking a beautiful lake of calm water. And we're just sitting there and we're looking out, we're having a conversation. And that conversation, I'm allowing myself to speak from my heart what I feel. And then I'm allowing to receive whatever comes to me. And that doesn't mean that the person's going to speak audibly in your mind and you're going to hear it and it's going to have a conversation like you would if you were sitting across the table from one another. But it will probably be more profound, because it will probably be a deeper, richer feeling. And you'll get a feeling like, oh, I just got a feeling. Or some people might get a scent, a smell of roses, or some sort of a connection. And you begin there and you go, okay, I know that I can't see the other person. I can't see them, but I just know that they still are. They still exist. Their consciousness. They can still hear me. I can still speak with them, and they can still speak with me. So that's some of the process of how we can work on experiencing. So, and not trying to get rid of the numbness. We don't try to get rid of it. We embrace it. We say, yeah, I'm feeling numb because I'm feeling the loss.
Yeah.
I'm feeling the loss. This is my feelings. I let my feelings come out. I let my feelings be. I don't try to rush anything. I don't try to move through it like somebody else moves through their grief process. I allow my grief process to flow, and I allow myself to experience what comes up for me, knowing that it is my process. I don't, one thing is advisable when we just lose someone, it's we don't make any major life decisions. Which I did. I got rid of a house and moved into a very small apartment, which wasn't the best idea. But, you know, I'm also strong-headed and will listen when somebody gives me information. But I did that. But it takes a while, usually about a year,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you could start making that. So I'm
Well,
going to
and
do that.
that's to your
Mhm.
point about, you don't move through grief.
Yeah.
Your perspective shifts
Your
as you
perspective
heal,
shifts. Yes,
and
yes, yeah,
time changes your life in some way. Your relationship with the grief
yeah,
shifts.
yeah.
Um,
Your
uh,
father, so it's saying here, she says, my ego needs and wants him here. Okay, their ego needs and wants him here. Our ego then is dictating, which is kind of restricting him from coming closer. So as you heal and that lessens, then he'll be able to come closer to you. Then you'll more than likely experience him in the dream state, or you'll just have you might even, and this happens many times to people, they get a flash like out of the peripheral vision, and they'll go, what I thought I just saw my dad, or I just saw my loved one, and it's because you connected energetically, and that's how your mind interpreted that information. So you just accept that that was the experience I just had, and that's wonderful. That's wonderful. But know that your dad is aware of you and is watching you and is with you and sending you love at all times. So as you open up to that, it helps. It helps.
yeah, and
Okay?
as you were speaking about, what's most common is to know that they're okay, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and it just coming at it. This brings me back to why I'm doing this to begin with. Why I wrote Tyson's Gift. Why I started the podcast. The whole thing. Um, it, it Achieving and knowing about the person's eternal nature is key. And however you do that, whether you enlist the services of a talented, credible psychic like Aumara or Lisa Silverman, who's a really great medium, or Erica Busser-Haney, who I had on a few weeks ago. There's something about having somebody outside of yourself who is not emotionally involved, who objectively makes observations based on what they're receiving, and that make perfect sense. Especially, and that's the thing about a credible intuitive, is that it becomes very specific. These aren't generalities. Things like because I had a couple initially, and I think they were credible, but the information that came through wasn't specific enough to convince me, because I still was very skeptical. And it was things like, they want you to be okay, and so, well, of course they do. I mean, and I think it was true. I think that maybe they probably were receiving that information, but it wasn't enough to convince me. And so whether it be through an intuitive that you receive the information, or your own meditation, and putting out that energy and messages out to your loved one into the universe, or both. Actually, I think both is a great way to go. It worked for me. When you do finally come to that place where in your heart and your mind, I think it's important to have both. Actually, I think if you don't challenge your mind through the process, you can later on you can convince yourself that it wasn't real. So you need to be conscientious about your process as you go through it. But if you're honest with yourself and you really search and reach out, when you come to that place where the peace that comes with that, of not just the fact that this specific loved one is okay, and that you're still connected to them, and that love is still very much alive, and they're very much alive, but the very nature of our being is wrapped up in that, and the peace that it gives you in terms of your whole perspective on life and what your relationships are all about, what love is all about, it changes your life completely. Just that one fact, all the implications that are wrapped up in it. And when you speak about how that shifts when you know that when you're grieving a loved one, as you know, my mom passed away a couple weeks ago, and it's still processing, and I'm going out there, actually leaving tomorrow to go out and go through her stuff, and I'm sure that's going to be emotional. But the grief that I went through, or am going through, is so much different with that spiritual knowledge and knowing than it was in any deaths that I coped with prior to that. So I don't know. I just want to be an affirmer of what you were just saying, because it's powerful.
It is powerful, and we are individuated aspects of consciousness having experience. We're spirit in a physical form, experiencing what it's like to be in a physical form. We're spirit in a physical form. Physical form has a nervous system. We have emotions. When we're in the spirit, we don't have the nervous system. We don't have emotions because we don't have the body. So we're detached from that. So we have more of a global understanding. So for an experience that I had, and that was and it might be difficult for some to understand it, but I'm going to share it anyway because I'm getting guided to share it. So it's coming out. How do I know I'm getting guided to share it? Because it's kind of like bubbling up. My husband had passed away, and it was the next day a friend of mine came to take me out to lunch. And I had a beautiful property, and had some about 50-foot tall pine trees. And out of the tree had fallen this crow about a week before. And the baby was still okay. And every day, about 20, I used to count them. There was about 20 crows that came and would feed the baby, and they'd be with the baby, and they'd all spend some time. I had a beautiful lawn, and they'd be on the lawn together, and I'd be sitting at the window, and I was watching this whole thing. And I was like, oh yeah, the baby's going to be okay. The baby's going to be okay. The baby's going to be okay. And then my husband passed. And then the next day when the friend came, I said, I've got to take you outside and show you this baby crow. Against all odds, it's making it. And we go outside, and I find the crow in the bush, the baby in the bushes. The baby didn't make it.
Oh,
and I'm like, I was just, at that point, I was like, I felt so bad. And we went out, we came back, and I'm sitting by myself. My friend went home, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm looking out into the yard at that location where all the crows would come. And there's a fence, I'd say about 50 feet away from me. And I'm looking, and I'm crying because I'm going through my process of grief at that time, holding all that energy. And I said, why so much death around me in this moment? And all of a sudden, a crow lands on the fence, and I felt the energy, and he looked right at me, and his energy pierced right through me. And he says, why do you look for my baby? My baby lives in me. As long as there's one of us here, we're all here. And then he flew away. Well, that's profound. And when we sit with that and we really allow ourselves to breathe that in, when there's one of us here, we're all connected in oneness. If I ask most people, do you understand oneness? They'll go, oh yes, the interconnectedness of all things. Oh, really? Okay. Now, how have you contemplated that and your role in it? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about how you're connected to the people who are in the house next door to you that you may never even see because they enter their house like they do in California? They go right into the garage and they don't necessarily come out the front door. And you don't even see anybody and you don't have a conversation, but maybe a barbecue once a year. So you don't really, but you are connected with every aspect, everything that goes on. Everybody around you, whether they're in your neighborhood, whether they're on the other side of the globe, whether the color of their skin, their ethnicity, their cultural background, none of that matters. We're all connected in the whole. So we're experiencing each other all the time, and we don't think of it that way. We go, oh yeah, it's interconnectedness of all life. Yeah, it's like the circle of life. But it's when we really start to understand what it means to be one.
Yeah. And no, we
And
really are connected.
we really are connected. So that crow was telling me when one of us is here, we're all experiencing life. Don't just look for my baby. My baby came and was in the body of the crow for a brief time. Doesn't mean that he doesn't exist anymore. He still exists. He exists in me. As I'm experiencing through my eyes, I'm seeing. And I have had the experience, and this may sound really bizarre for some listeners, but I have experienced seeing through other people and others' eyes. I've had experiencing somebody on the other side of the globe. And I was seeing through his eyes what he was seeing.
I have too, believe it or not.
Have you? Yes.
I was doing a energy healing session a couple weeks ago, and I was talking about this person on the air, and I completely forgot about this one. Afterwards, I was like, how could I forget that? But I got a vision of because I always try to channel any highest good messages for the people while I'm working on them, and usually it comes in the form of images that I interpret. You know, in this particular case, I got an image of eggs, like sunny side up eggs. And, you know, not real clear. I'm not real clairvoyant. It's real blurry, but I could tell it was eggs.
Yeah.
Well,
all you need to know is no.
When I was done, when I told her I saw eggs, she goes, "When was this?" And I said, right in the beginning of the session, because it was a distance session. She says, "I was making eggs." I was like, okay, we were connected.
Yeah, you are connected.
Obviously.
Yeah. You cannot not be. You cannot not be.
But I mean, that's affirmation of the fact.
Yeah.
You know, when you get those, you know, it's coming when you're starting off and all this, it's so easy to discount it. You know, it's so important to hear these affirmations from other people and to be encouraged to seek them out yourself. Real quick, I want to catch up on the comments because we're lots of commentary and involvement tonight. Let's see.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Yeah,
love it. I love it.
Barbara says authentic and frequency source. When you were talking about the connectedness, you know, with that came around the time when you were talking about our loved ones crossing over and more like being in a different room. Christina says, "Thank you, Aumara. I'm going to do that." This is the one that was asking about the grief. I feel my dad every now and then. Wait, I guess you already read that one. Lisa Silverman says, "Hi, Brandon and Aumara." She was on the show a couple weeks ago.
I feel you.
I'll bet you do. Barbara says, "Love is our connection." So sorry, Tyson. People mix me up with my dog Tyson, and I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, it's Tyson's gift, not because it's not
an
my
aspect
gift.
of consciousness.
It's the gift. It's the gift that Tyson gave to me to share, to have the consciousness and to share it with others. So that's why Tyson's gift. Everything that I do when it comes to spirit is all stems in I give reverence to him because he. Oh shoot! Ooh, I will start crying. Because everything starts from him. Lisa says, "Beautifully said, Brandon." Thank you, Lisa. Rachel says, "I had no idea about your mom, Brandon. I'm so sorry to hear this." And thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. And Christina says, "Thank you, Brandon. So true. I'm sorry for your loss too." And I was talking about the.
Can I stop you for a moment?
Sure.
Okay, I want to stop you for a moment, and I want as you're feeling that deep emotional connection. Okay, this is connecting into that source of love that we all want to connect into. And we may look at it as I want different psychic openings or I want this but it's love. So if as you're feeling that, I want everyone listening right here, right now, place your hands on your heart, breathe in and allow yourself to feel. Let's feel. Let's not be afraid of our emotion. Let's feel it. Let's feel into that. We're all connected. We're all feeling. This is a love connection. We're all here for one another. We're walking in this journey with each other. We're open and we're here to assist one another. So feel into it. Feel into it. Don't ever run from it. Don't try to suppress it. Don't hide from it. Say thank you. Reach out. Tyson, I embrace you. I embrace you. I embrace you. This energy, this consciousness, this is within me. This is within all. As the crow said, my baby lives in me. Tyson lives in you. Tyson is another aspect of the consciousness that came forth to awaken you. He came forth to awaken you so that you can do what you need to do. He had to lie down his physical body, but he did not lie down. He sits forever at your feet. He is always with you. This you know, this you feel, this you understand. So open up, embrace that, hold it dear, and know that it is to be felt.
Oh, believe me, I do. I just,
It is. Let everybody share it. Don't
you know
hide it.
how
Share it. If you speak and say, wait, let's take a moment. Let's all feel. Let's all feel this. Let's all feel this. Okay. And I ask everybody listening, who amongst you does not feel the connection in this moment? You experience it in your own way, but you're going to feel it. So you just assisted everybody in feeling. So that's beautiful.
And Tyson threw me. All the more reason for you to read the book and find out about Pepper.
Yeah.
Yeah. There it is.
Love is the answer. Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
I definitely allow that to come into my heart, but my first instinct when I'm in front of a bunch of people is to block it out.
That's not why you're here.
No, you're right.
That was like me trying to fit in, and the rest of us were trying to fit in. We can never fit in. We're not meant to fit in. We're meant to be. We were created as individual aspects of consciousness. We're not created to be a copy of somebody else. We're created to be an individual aspect, which means we show up. We stand tall in the energy of which we are. And you are a blessing to be a male who's in touch with his feelings.
It just sounds so. I'm not laughing at you.
We can look at the world and say, oh my gosh, isn't it wonderful that you can stand there and embrace your feelings and show you have emotion. Yeah. And you don't have to be something for somebody else. You are you. What a beautiful thing.
And that's, right? And that, I will say that has been one of the most profound gifts that he gave me, was being able to tap into that love and open my heart.
Yeah.
And it's been an ongoing process. And it's still going on. I'm still opening up. But
so he's still right there.
Oh yeah, he is. He is.
Check him out.
In Pepper.
Yeah, he even has a cape. I mean, he deserves to have that cape. He's powerful.
It's powerful. Mm-hmm. Love is powerful. That's love. That's love.
I want to make sure I read all these comments because everybody put their thoughts and love into it. Let's see, where was I? Rachel said, sorry to hear about your mom. Thank you, Rachel. And Christina also said that's sorry for your loss. And so sorry, Barbara says, just got chills. I'm not sure what she meant it, but Lisa says, yes, I love that. I'm sure it was something you were saying, and I'm sure it's worthy of love.
Connecting to the love, the knowing that the love, this is what we want to connect to. When somebody says, coming for even a mediumship type reading, well, I wouldn't suggest coming to somebody like myself because I'm more the spiritual teacher. This is where I shine. I love to teach. I love to counsel, spiritual counsel. I do soul readings, which is helping to the unfoldment of the self, having to understand who you are in truth, working with you to understand why things are happening the way they are in your life. I'm not the one who's in the trenches every day doing mediumship. If I have somebody and they want to connect with their loved one, I will say, go see so and so, because they're the ones that are doing it day in and day out. That's their specialty. We wouldn't go to a brain surgeon because we want to have something done to our feet. We go to a podiatrist, Right. So know who you're going to, is because we talked about the one that I had went to. Really reach out and say, if I had asked first, okay, God, send me where I need to go, then it would have been it was the experience it needed to be. But we want to ask, we want to make sure that we're guided to who we're going to, and know why we're going.
Yeah. Well, and I've use that qualification when I send people to the different people. You're one of the ones that I refer people to a lot, but different things, but don't, you're still pretty off the hook incredible. Even with I will say, with the meeting, my mom, I remember you had this session with my mom before she passed. This was in 2020, and her dad came through. I remember that, and it created a lot of healing, an opportunity for a lot of healing. She got a lot out of that session. Rachel brought this up, which is pretty cool. I forgot all about this, but I had done a healing for her distance. I'm in Florida. She's in Austin, Texas, but I saw orchids when I was working on her, and it turned out her boyfriend had just given her orchids. And so there's another example of seeing. I don't know if I was seeing through her eyes or seeing in, stuff in her energy field. Yeah, that was probably what it was. With the eggs, I'm pretty sure I was actually seeing through her eyes. But yeah, so there's another example of that connectedness.
And that's the beauty of that. You're connecting because you're in it, you're doing it. You're doing the physical work. You're healing, you're working with healing energy. You're opening yourself up to the source. So therefore that stream is flowing through you. The more you do it, the more that strengthens that flow. So then all different things start to happen that were not happening before. When somebody said, well, how do I tune in, or I want to have this experience? Well, then start to practice.
Yeah.
Start to practice.
And I can so account for that, because since I started my practice in April, I'm not real busy, but I still heal almost every day somebody. And yeah, the amount of flow that I get, the amount of energy I can feel, the messages that I'm able to pick up on, it's like working out. You're stronger because you do it more often. It's a muscle.
It's a muscle.
Lisa says, yes, great conversation, hugs. And Andrea says, incredible. Andrea, my sister, again says, incredible, Aumara. Thank you for sharing your story and your gift.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll see her again, Andy, because Andy happens to live fairly close to where Aumara is. So you don't have to be close, by the way. She does most of what you do is distance now, right? So
it is through Zoom, yes, or by phone, yes.
But I've enjoyed in-person stuff with you too. I have to say. And Lisa says, "Love is the answer." So true, absolutely. And Barbara says, "Thank you." Yes. Christina says, "I feel it. That love energy we were talking about." And Barbara says, "Absolutely." And Lisa says, we're meant to stand out in our truths, in these truths. And it's a never-ending journey in life and everlasting love. And she says to you, you are so lovely, Aumara.
Thank you.
And Barbara says, we are also connected to star beings.
That we are all connected, whether we realize it or not. But the star beings still came forth from the same source. So that's into that interconnected web. It goes beyond this Earth sphere.
Oh yeah.
It goes beyond. Yeah. And we want to recognize that. We want to honor that. We want to connect to. We want to experience our connection to the star beings. Whatever we feel we're drawn to, whether it be the Palladians or whether it be the Octorians, I have a very strong Octorian connection myself. So that's oneness, but now we have to go beyond because there's infinity. It reminds me of that I'm getting that, what was it, the child's show with the Buzz Lightyear, to infinity and beyond.
Yeah.
We are infinity and beyond. So yeah, we can revel in that experience through the connection to our star family, and say, yeah, but we are of the greatest family. We are infinity and beyond. We want to not limit ourselves.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, while you were talking about the crow, when you got that strong message, what form? What form? Not that it mattered. I was just curious what form it came through, that message.
It came as, okay, so I've received messages in many different ways. This one was the booming voice in the head. It's booming. It booms in your head. I mean, it gets your attention instantly. It's boom, and there it is. It's not a subtle thing. It's a boom, and
so it was a clairaudient thing?
That was clairaudient. Yeah, that was clairaudient. Well, I don't know that it is in. I don't want somebody to think that they have to listen to try to hear it, because it's in the head. It's just playing. It's like, okay, somebody just started
Yeah.
playing music in your head. You hear the music.
Yeah.
It's right
Yeah.
there, right there.
Yeah. Exactly. I've had situations where that, not a lot, not like you, but I've had some clairaudient events, and I couldn't tell if I heard it. I couldn't tell how it came through, but not like I saw it on screen. It was like
Mhm.
I saw, and it was
But you
weird.
just know. You
Yeah,
just know.
it was like boom, like you said. There it is.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We're already see conversation. Time goes by in a hurry.
Yes, I was just
Yes.
thinking of other experiences to share.
Yep.
I'll have to write them down.
Well, we'll have to. Are you willing to come on again at some point?
Sure, if you'd like me to. Sure,
Of course, I would
it.
like you to, and I'm sure all my audience members would like you to as well. So it's actually, we're already 10 minutes past the hour, so that's we provided some good interesting discussion tonight, I think. Is there anything you would like to advertise, or just websites, or anything you want to talk about that people are aware of, where they can find you, or anything like that?
Okay. It's up on the screen at www.askaumara.com. That's my website. To contact me, speak directly with me, it's Aumara, Aumara, at Aumara, Aumara, Bonnet, that's Bonnet.com. That's my email. You can contact me at my email. You can watch me on my show. It's at 9 p.m. my time, and I'm in Arizona, which is Mountain Standard Time. You can ask your questions there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. As far as connecting with me, if you would want to work more with me, it's for spiritual growth, development. My heart and my passion and my work that I do is for the awakening process, opening so that you can be the next greatest iteration of yourself and come more into the illumination, the awareness that you are light, you are love, you are all that you ever need to be right where you are, and opening up to that. And as we open up to that, we begin to release the overlays that are obstructing that view from us. And then we call that journeying home. We journey home, and eventually we all reach that oneness point. And we can't reach it without everyone. It's not like we can say, okay, I'm going to try my hardest to get an A and I'm going to be the A+ student. It doesn't work that way. We all have to go together. So then we must be that change, as Mahatma Gandhi said. We must be the change we must be that change that we want to see in the world. And what that means, in order for me to see that change in the world, I must be that change inside of me. So I must awaken to my own divinity. And as I do that, then the world that is reflected from me is that change. And there's no difference between me and that world. So we want to open to that. You want to go more within that, then I'm the person to call. If you want a mediumship reading, then Brandon's got some excellent sources for you. If you want a healing, you want to go to Brandon. He's got a great healing practice, and I spotlight him on my website. You can see him on my website under Spotlight. And the reason I do that is not just because I consider him a dear friend. Is because I acknowledge what he's doing and the great work he's doing in the world. And I can see and I can feel, and he is growing, he is expanding, and he's got a lot to offer. He's got a lot of great work to do. And that I said, I've got to spotlight him on my website so that people can find you and start receiving that.
You just made my week. To have that kind of an endorsement from you is like, I never thought I would experience something like that. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. It means more than you know. Or maybe you do know, but still, it does mean an awful lot to me.
And it is so. It is true.
A couple more comments. Everybody wants you to know how loved you are. Let's see.
Thank you.
So Let's see. Barbara says, I'm so glad I found you both tonight. Thank you both. Or Christina says, thank you both so much. I needed this. Rachel says, I love you both so much. And she says,
love to you, Rachel.
She says, readings with Aumara are wonderful. And they are. And Lisa says, yes, he does. Thank you, Lisa. So, okay. So I guess I'll go ahead and wrap it up here. If you're, if you're looking for what my offerings are, the healings that I do, and, or if you just want to reach out to me, my website is tysonsgifthealing.com. The book is tysonsgift.com, but you can actually get to the book from the healing website if you're curious. So I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to heal you if you're wanting to, receive some of that love energy. It's what I do. So I guess with that note, I will wrap this up. But thank you so much, Aumara.
You are so welcome. And say that book, Tyson's Gifts, is a great reading. But it's also, if you have a friend or someone you know that's just lost a pet and is grieving for the loss of their pet, what a beautiful gift that you can share with them by giving them Tyson's Gift.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the purpose behind it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Aumara's show, 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time or Mountain Time.
Yeah, Arizona time.
Yeah, or I guess it would be 11 o'clock Eastern if you're on the East Coast, 11 o'clock. But do yourself a favor and tune in. If you enjoyed what you're hearing on this show tonight, you'll just get that much more of it, and you can't lose. So, so thank you. And next week, just FYI, I'm going to have MP McCullough on. She's an animal communicator. It'll be the first animal communicator I've had on. So that should be really interesting too. I'm looking forward to that. Next week, Thursday at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, and 4 p.m. Pacific. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brandon.
Okay. Take good care. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.